Hello everyone, my name is Oskar Lagerrosen and I'm the founder of The Total Living. Now I would like to read out loud the 14th blog post in the One Glance article series covering the daily and the weekly updates. So let's dive right into it, because to keep both the weekly view, your tasks and projects both clear, current and complete, you need to process your input once a day, at least, and put them in the system. You should, in other words, input whatever you're obligated to do via email, other channels, a delegation from superiors or clients, or your own insights into the system. The once a day habit of gathering all your inputs and deciding what to do with them is key for optimal functioning. The best way is to schedule around 10 to 30 minutes a day on your calendar, usually as late as possible, like for instance at the end of your workday, for the daily update. The daily update goes very fast because you're already doing the entry and exit practice by now. And you can check out part 10 for more details. I will link it in the show notes and the description. So how do you actually do the daily update? Step 1, put everything to the buffer. And what do I mean by buffer? The buffer can be defined as anything that holds your input from completely entering your world, from inboxes to physical notes. Moreover, there is also a long-term buffer called the someday maybe list, and this is what you are putting everything into. This list contains everything you might want to do at some point, but are unsure. Maybe just like, okay, might want to do it, but yeah, not really quite sure. It functions as a holding bin for everything else you do not want to do right away, or delete for that matter. And creating a someday maybe list is super easy. Just create a new note/document on your preferred note-taking app or word processor. Call it someday maybe or buffer, and then you're good to go. When doing your daily update, you start by writing everything you need to do, might want to do, or save in the long-term buffer, someday maybe list. You go through your notes, email inbox, and notifications, and write down quite loosely what is it all about. In the buffer, you're free to enter some keywords, just for a quick reminder. So you don't need to do the extra clarification stuff. Just type, okay, mom's birthday, or buy cat food, or I'm worried because of this, and etc. Be quick here. Because in the next steps, you will further clarify the ones you decide to commit to, i.e. only some parts, some entries. You will put everything in the buffer because it's much easier to put everything in one place already. So you can just like, okay, copy, paste, look down, right. So it goes very automatic and fast. And later you will distribute them accordingly. And next week we'll cover everything about capture tools in general, because that's like the next step of capturing, that you have something with you all the time. But for now, you can use a mind sweep list to brain dump everything you're committed to doing or want to do. And I'm going to read it very soon. And if you think while I'm saying like, oh, that reminds me of X, then you write X down in the buffer. For instance, like do something about X, buy X, etc. But just a quick note, you do not need to look or listen to me reciting this list when you're doing your daily updates. Just use it whenever you need to. So in practice, it's like, okay, maybe once a month, once every month. It doesn't really matter. It's just like for now to make sure that, okay, now I got everything out of my head, every open loop, and then into the system where it belongs. So I'm going to read out loud the mind sweep lists and the different categories. The first category is problems, because every problem, negative feeling you have, whether pain, fear, worry, resentment, or anxiety, or guilt for that matter, needs to be captured and identified. What is taking more mental bandwidth than it deserves? For instance, Yeah, if your back is hurting for some reason, then you schedule doctor's appointments or do some other exercises. Or if you are worried that, okay, what if the presentation for the client is going to fail and I'll make a fool out of myself? And then you write down, revisit the presentation for practice and tech checking. Or you might be a little bit frustrated when person X does a particular thing all the time, which you don't like. And then you write down the buffer, resolve situation with person X. Or you might get worried, like in general, like what if I get laid off and cannot feed my family? And then you write down, get clarity about the current job situation and your backup options. The next category is a calendar. So as often as you need to, look at your calendar for the past weeks for any follow-up for a meeting or an event, and also look at the future events for something you need to book or prepare for. There can also be upcoming events such as birthday and anniversaries. So for instance, if you are browsing back and say, okay, I need to call this person back, and then you write that down. Or you look further and see that, okay, I need to figure out what we do at the team offsite, or I need to book a trip that's coming up in 2 months, or my mom or other person has a birthday coming up as well. Then you note that down. The third category is your immediate belongings, such as briefcase, bag, wallet, backpack, purse, pockets, and stuff like that. What objects have you collected because you will do something about them in the future? For instance, like a business card or another kind of reminder. Then you can, okay, what does this mean? And write it down in the buffer. The fourth category is physical environment. So walk around your home, car, office, desk, cabin, everything that you are attending to in terms of space, and look for things that are just lying around without a place. And it can also be things you need to repair, things you need to do, or things you need to buy or renovate for that matter. And examples can be like documents on desks just lying there and you haven't really paid attention to them yet. They could be old clothes or other kinds of old stuff that you are not really sure if you want to keep. You could, for instance, have an entry of cleaning your garage if there's something that you might go back to, and it could be like ASL and basement as well. Or you might decide, okay, I need to buy, for instance, like a computer, headphone, or other kinds of gear related stuff, or other things for that matter. Then we have the fifth category, the professional development side. So is there anything you need to learn, build, and start in order to like advance your skills and thus your value and career forward? For instance, like if there's a training workshop that your company provides, some kind of internal training, you might look into it and decide whenever it fits to your schedule. And lastly, we have the personal development. So is there any hobby you want to pursue? Any skills you want to learn or become better at? Any exercise you want to start? For instance, you can learn a language such as Polish, or maybe do some other activities such as painting or some kind of sport or some other kinds of physical building projects, whatever it's most exciting for you. Or you can also start like running or weightlifting regularly. That could also be a thing that you note down. And for more entries for inspiration, and then you look at, okay, that's the thing that we need to do. I will link in the show notes and the description an incomplete trigger list. That's called the incomplete trigger list from the Getting Things Done, which are pioneers in terms of capturing everything that is very important. And in addition, you also save your ideas, quotes, notes, and important documents in the long-term buffer, the Someday Maybe list for now, or at least write their name. And you will get back to it very soon. Because step 2, that was step 1 before. Step 2 is that you will copy all references and notes to their own pages. So you will save everything you have collected in terms of like ideas, quotes, notes, important documents as their own kind of notes and documents, or in their selected folders. You can either create new notes manually or add to existing notes. In mem.ai, the program that I use, you have the option to select the text and then choose the option push to new mem to create a note with the same information. And in the next week, I will come back to it a little bit more, how you capture stuff in general. Then we have step 3. Add the entries you need or want to do to weekly view. Because now you check each entry on its own, and then you decide if you want to delete it, keep it in the buffer for later reassessment, or do something about it this week, whether it's a task or a project. It is much easier to select the optimal amount of new tasks if they're already in a holding bin. So then you can just say, do I really want to do it? So, okay, I might just do it then. It's much easier to ask the first question, which is why you're doing anything at all, because it presents itself as an option, which you can either take or not take for now. And you also have a clear overview of both the tasks you have already, which is in the weekly view, and the optional ones, which are in the someday maybe list. And if you need to want to start some tasks or projects that are first next week or later weeks, you can enter them into the longer view. Longer view is basically an extension of the weekly view. And you can check out the previous video, and I will link it in the show note in the description as well, because it's a very important one if you want to add things to the weekly view. And you must input them right into the system. Step 4, plan the next day. And step 4 is the last one, by the way. Now you schedule and time block your day tomorrow on your calendar based on the weekly view and other events showing up. And I will link another video and episode in the show notes and descriptions about how you actually use your calendar optimally. And optionally, you can do this step first thing tomorrow if you feel like it works best for you, as long as you do it. Very important. And that is it. After some practice, it will not take more than 20 to 30 minutes a day to stay on top of the obligations, incoming messages, your own ideas, and everything. A day without the daily update should feel as weird as a day without doing the dishes if you're eating at home. So just an analogy on how important it is. Have a recurring event on your calendar for daily update. You can abbreviate as DU and adjust if needed. But then you might ask, okay, what if I have too many tasks, emails, notifications? I get like 100, 200 emails daily. I'm very busy, you know. And yeah, I absolutely know. It's not uncommon to receive so many new inputs and other kinds of like opportunities coming up, especially if you have a lot going for and have very jam-packed days. But you still have the same 24 hours and can only do a certain time, certain amount every day for you. You can, of course, like delegate to other people. That's also a thing if you have the fortune to do that. But you personally can only use your 24 hours. And the buffer, the someday maybe list, is your friend here because it is protecting you and your schedule, for that matter, from the onslaught of your attention. Because if you have a lot incoming, just dump most of them into the buffer very easily. You could just like a mass copy, mass paste into it. And like, okay, I'll decide later. It's not really that urgent, so to speak. You don't need to decide everything. Just dump. And also one thing, not all emails, notifications, entries in general are equal. That's very important to know, because in signal and noise theory, the more entries there are, the more likely is the fact that there's a lot of noise and less signal. And this is, by the way, the reason why you don't want to check, for instance, like notifications or Slack channels or social media or email too often, because if you just step back and wait a little, then you will later see, like, okay, this one is actually important, while other kinds are more like noise or not that important. And I can give you an analogy, for instance, like daily news, like if there's some kind of news page from the newspaper, like, oh, this one is so important, but if you wait like 4 to 8 weeks, and it wasn't really that important. So in that case, it was a noise. But if there is a real signal, something that is actually important, you will have the opportunity to find out very soon. So do not worry about like having to attend to all things that you are coming in, because they are not really equal, and you decide whenever whatever is the most important for you. So you can therefore like ignore most of them unless they are really important, of course, and you gain economy of scale and batching. So to give you an example, like out of 100 emails, maybe like 10 are the most important one for you, and the other could be either ones that could wait a little, or basically spam. And so that's a very small percentage. Now I would like to briefly mention the weekly update, because once a week you need to create a new weekly view. And the weekly update, by the way, is kind of like a culmination of both the weekly review, which is a very established practice in the GTD methodology, and the weekly planning, which is the established methodology for the ones that Cal Newport proposes. So the weekly update is basically both of them combined. But, and it's a big but, because you're doing daily updates already, doing a weekly update is very simple and fast, especially if you're using the longer view. And the weekly update is basically a daily update with 4 extra steps. So you can think it's like a little bit an extension of the weekly, of the daily update rather. And I can give you an analogy for like the kitchen, because you're doing the dishes every day, but once a week you might just like clean everything else, but you're not doing it every day. So that is kind of like what the weekly update is. It's just like a few extra steps once a week, and you do these steps directly after you enter then everything to the buffer and someday maybe lists. So first you do the weekly update steps, and then you come back to the calendar and stuff like that. So it's like in the middle of the daily update process. So when you're doing a weekly update, you first input the weekly view again, which are waiting for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So you input these headlines, and you can also see part 13 for details. Revisit your goals. That was the first one. The next step is that you revisit your goals and areas and update them. And if you don't have any goals and areas written down at the moment, don't worry, because I will come back to them in about 2 weeks. I will cover everything about goals, areas, even about the vision, your dream life, and your info about the longer view. The third step is that you copy everything that has been written in longer view for the upcoming week and clarify the tasks and projects in the same way as you did for the daily update and inputting stuff in weekly view in general. And once again, I refer to part 13 because it's a very important video for this, an episode. Lastly, you go through the entire Someday Maybe list and decide for each entry if you still want to keep it there for next week's review, delete it, or put it into weekly view. And that's very important, because the buffer can only function if you're looking at everything like regularly. It's perfectly okay to not decide about the thing, as long as you have a decide to not decide schedule. So you need to like renegotiate with yourself again if you look at one thing like, okay, I still am not really sure, but that's okay, I will come back to it next week. But the thing is, you still have to do it as some kind of regular basis. So I recommend that you do it when you're doing your weekly update on top of your daily update. So daily update and weekly update on top. And you specify what day of the week you want to do your weekly update in conjunction with the daily update. A popular day is Friday, since you can then enjoy the weekend without worrying about next week. But you can do it any other day that fits you the most. That's completely up to you. So in conclusion, with the daily and weekly updates, you are now unstoppable. You're on top of your game and nothing is falling through the cracks. And I know that it was a little bit too much, maybe like doing a completely new activity and habit, stuff like that. But do not worry. Do not worry. In later videos and episodes, I will show you how you implement the One Glance system in your daily life step by step. I will show you how you implement it very gradually with one new habit at a time. And it's very important to do it gradually because, it's how behavior change in general also are executed. And only do the daily updates once you are both a regular calendar user, see part 8 for that, and do thorough exits after each activity, see part 10 for that. Monday's video and episode will go deeper on how you can use deadlines and start as late as possible with your task and project to increase your productivity by a factor of 30 dramatically and not burn out. So that's important to still have the efficiency without the stress. And I will come back to it on Monday. And if you like this post, if you like this video and the episode and the article series for that matter, and wish that your friends could live a stress-free and productive life as well, please share it. Also, do not forget to subscribe to the newsletter on the website, or you can also subscribe to the YouTube channel and on the podcasts, wherever you're listening from. And with that, I want to say thank you very much for your attention and have a very nice day. See you in the next one.